Today's lesson is the myth of the Sampo. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're going to talk about a story called The Myth of the Sampo. And this is an old traditional Finnish legend, a legend that comes from Finland. And it's quite interesting. It's very imaginative. And it's one of those legends that all cultures around the world seem to have. Now we're going to talk about one from Finland in Northern Europe.
Yes, and this is a myth. So a myth refers to a story from long ago, and myths usually describe the origins of something, how the world came about, because a long time ago, and still today, many people have a lot of questions about why people exist and how Earth was created. So in the past, cultures came up with myths about creation, about their origins. And this is the version from Finland, and it's about the Sampo.
And they're trying to explain various things with this myth, so we'll get to that as we explain our lesson today. So let's begin our lesson and talk about the old bard Väinämöinen and what he was doing out there at sea.
The myth of the Sampo. After barely surviving a battle at sea, the old bard Väinämöinen from the land known as Kalevala washed up on the shores of Pohjola, a dark place full of monsters and man-eaters. Its ruler, the powerful witch Louhi, took it upon herself to nurse him back to health, but she did so for a price. Not content with mere gold or silver as a reward, she wanted Väinämöinen to construct what she called the Sampo, a magical object that could produce unlimited salt, grain, and money for its owner.
Da家好，第一部分我们看到片语 take it upon or on oneself 加上 to 加动词，表示将点点点视为己任或是主动去点点点。例如 When my neighbor was in the hospital, I took it upon myself to take care of his pets. 我的邻居住院时，我自愿担负起照顾他宠物的责任。或是 When Evelyn was unable to come to class, Steve took it on himself to share his notes with her. Evelyn 无法来上课时， Steve 主动把自己的笔记跟她分享。
So we're going to dive right into the myth of the Sampo. After barely surviving a battle at sea, the old bard Väinämöinen from the land known as Kalevala washed up on the shores of Pohjola, a dark place full of monsters and man-eaters. So the hero of this myth is Väinämöinen, and he is described as an old bard. A bard is a poet, or you could also say that a bard is a poet-singer, because a long time ago, poems weren't written down to be read. There was no writing in many cultures a long, long time ago, so poems were sung or they were spoken. So a bard is someone who speaks a poem, who writes a poem, but also sings it or speaks it.
Right. And of course, when somebody says the bard, that often refers to Shakespeare because he was a playwright, a poet, and all that stuff. So we've got Väinämöinen, and he's out at sea, and he just had a battle with somebody, but he barely survived that battle. And of course, he's from the land known as Kalevala. And of course, it was a brutal battle there. And so he washed up on the shores of Pohjola, a dark place full of monsters and man-eaters. Ooh, that's not the right place to wash up on after you've had a battle.
Right. So the ruler, the powerful witch Louhi, took it upon herself to nurse him back to health, but she did so for a price. So when Väinämöinen arrived at the shores of Pohjola, he was discovered by Louhi, who decided, after seeing this person injured and probably unconscious, to take care of him and to nurse him back to health. So Louhi took it upon herself to nurse him. When you take something upon yourself, you go ahead and do it. because it needs to be done, and you do it even though nobody says you have to do it. So this is what Lohi did. She nursed him back to health. Nurse in this context is used as a verb, which means to take care of somebody who's ill or who's injured, to take care of them until they are healthy once again.
Indeed. For example, many years ago when I worked in an office, the office manager didn't do a good job on a particular project, so I took it upon myself to finish that project. And, of course, the manager was quite angry about that. It made him look bad, and I got in trouble for that, but at least the project was finished in a responsible manner. But here, the witch Lohi decided to nurse him back to health. She made that decision to bring him back to health, to nurse him back to health, to take care of him until he was back to normal. But she did so for a price, okay? So she's a witch, she's mean, so of course she realizes that, hey, I'm not going to do this for free. I need to have something in return for doing this. And not content with mere gold or silver as a reward, she wanted Wainamoinen to construct what she called the Sampo. And what's a sampo? Well, that is a magical object that could produce unlimited salt, grain, and money for its owner. That sounds like something I would like to have. But gold and silver doesn't sound so bad either. And it's just gold or silver, mere gold or silver. So if you use the word mere, it just means only, as if that thing isn't really significant. It took me mere seconds to finish the job, which means it took me only a few seconds to finish the job. And she wasn't content with mere gold or silver. She wasn't satisfied with that. That's not good enough. Gold, silver, I can get that anytime.
Right, so she wasn't happy with getting gold or silver in return for nursing him back to health. She wanted something better called the sampo, and it's basically something that allows you to get whatever you want, unlimited supplies of what you want. And in different cultures, there are different examples of the sampo. Here it's called the sampo. In other myths, it might be the horn of plenty, which is in another European myth. So there are many examples of objects that let you have whatever you want as much as you want.
Indeed, and you have to remember back then that salt was quite valuable. It wasn't easily obtained. Nowadays, we can get salt anywhere we want, but back then, salt was valuable. Grain, of course, is valuable, wheat and rice and stuff like that. And, of course, money is something everybody can't get enough of. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part, and we'll continue with our story.
Wainamoinen could not create the Sampo, but he knew who could. Ilmarinen, the legendary blacksmith of Kalevala, who had forged the Dome of the Sky. Wainamoinen returned to Kalevala to fetch Ilmarinen, and when the blacksmith wouldn't go willingly, the bard summoned a mighty storm to carry the pair to their destination.
第二部分我们看到单字 legendary。这个字是形容词，指家喻户晓的、传奇般的或是传说中的。举例来说 The legendary baseball star threw the first pitch in the opening game of the season. 那名传奇的棒球球星在赛季开场赛上投出第一颗球。或是 A legendary monster is said to live in a lake in Scotland. 据说有一只传说中的怪物住在苏格兰的一座湖里。另外补充这个字的同义词 fabled, F-A-B-L-E-D, fabled. 这个字是形容词，意思是传说中的或是传奇的。像是 Some of King Arthur's knights went on a quest to find the fabled Holy Grail. 亚瑟王的几名骑士出发寻找传说中的圣杯。也可以说Lauren read about a fabled city that lay at the bottom of the ocean. Lauren 读过有一座传奇之城位于海底。再来我们看到单字 summon. 这个字是动词，指命令点点点到某地或是召唤、传唤。举例来说 The employee was summoned to the boss's office for a meeting. 员工被叫到主管的办公室开会。或是The judge summoned David to give testimony in the case. 法官传唤 David 为这个案子提供证词。 另外补充一个含有 summon 在内的片语 summon up， 指心中浮现记忆、感觉或是印象，也可指激起勇气或是力量。例如 The smell of the baking cherry pie summoned up memories of a happier time for Alvin。 烤樱桃派的香味让 Alvin 心中浮现快乐的回忆。也可以说 The book summoned up Nick's courage to face his problem。 这本书激起 Nick 的勇气来正视他的问题。
So Lohi nursed Wainamoinen back to health, and in return, she wanted something called the sampo. Now, Wainamoinen could not create the sampo, but he knew who could. Ilmarinen, the legendary blacksmith of Kalevala, who had forged the dome of the sky. So Ilmarinen was a blacksmith. A blacksmith is somebody whose job is to make things out of metal, and he was a legendary blacksmith. Somebody who is legendary or something that's legendary is very well known and has been well known for a long time. Someone who belongs in legends mainly because they had achieved something extraordinary or they had a very particular talent. So Ilmarinen was a blacksmith, probably a very talented blacksmith, which is why he was a legendary blacksmith. And indeed, he had forged the dome of the sky. A dome is a roof that's shaped like half a ball. And one of the origin stories that we come across a lot is, where did the sky come from? Who created the sky? And in this case, it's Ilmarinen who created the sky, the dome of the sky.
Yes, if you forge something, you make something out of metal, basically by heating it and pounding it with tools and stuff like that. So he forged the dome of the sky. And Wainamoinen returned to Kalevala to fetch Ilmarinen. And when the blacksmith wouldn't go willingly, the bard summoned a mighty storm to carry the pair to their destination. So again, Wainamoinen needed to make this sampo for the witch, but he couldn't do it himself, so he went to fetch Ilmarinen, who of course was the legendary blacksmith. If you fetch something or someone, you go and get that thing and bring it back. Like a dog can fetch a stick. Here, Fido, fetch the stick. Go get the stick and bring it back. Dogs seem to like tennis balls more than sticks, it seems. Fetch the tennis ball, bring it back. They just love to do that. And in any case here, he went to get Ilmarinen, went to fetch him. And unfortunately, Ilmarinen wasn't interested. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave. I'm no interested in that. He wouldn't go willingly. I don't want to go, so the bard basically had to force him to go. He summoned a mighty storm to carry the pair to their destination. So if you summon something or someone, you call them out and you bring them over. It's like giving them an order.
And that brings us to the end of our second part. Now let's move on to the third part.
In Pohjola, Ilmarinen was welcomed with open arms, and Lohi promised him her gorgeous daughter's hand in return for the sampo. After several unsuccessful attempts, Ilmarinen managed to create it. Delighted, Lohi immediately snatched it up and locked it away in a mountain. But when it came time for Ilmarinen to wed Lohi's daughter, the girl refused, and so he had to return to Kalevala alone.
最后第三部分，我们看到形容词 gorgeous， 意思是美丽动人的，或是引人入胜的、华丽的。举例来说 ，Betty wore a gorgeous dress to her friend's wedding. Betty 穿了一件美丽动人的洋装，参加朋友的婚礼。或是 The hotel room has a gorgeous view of the beach. 这间饭店房间有极美丽的海滩景观。
Now, Pohjola was known as a very dark place. It was the place of man-eaters, so creatures that ate people, and it was full of monsters, and everyone knew that in this story. So, of course, when Wainamoinen asked Ilmarinen to go with him to Pohjola to make the sampo, of course, Ilmarinen said, nope, I'm not going there. I don't want to be eaten by some monster. So Wainamoinen had no choice but to summon a mighty storm so that the two of them would be carried to this very dark and evil place.
Okay, and in Pohjola, Ilmarinen was welcomed with open arms, and Louhi promised him her gorgeous daughter's hand in return for the Sampo. So, of course, he was legendary, and when he arrived in Pohjola, Louhi was very excited about that. Oh, you're the famous blacksmith who forged the dome of the sky. Welcome! And he was welcomed with open arms, which means he was given a great welcome. You might go visit your relatives, and they'll welcome you with open arms. They'll give you hugs, of course, and they'll be excited to see you. And she was so excited to see him that she promised him her gorgeous daughter's hand in marriage in return for the Sampo. Okay, so gorgeous just means really, really beautiful, especially for a refined, beautiful woman. It's not just cute, it's not just beautiful, but it's gorgeous. Okay, she's a real knockout there. And of course, Ilmarinen would have been interested because she was so beautiful. So she offered her hand in return for the Sampo. If you offer someone's hand, you're not going to cut it off and give it to them so they can eat it or something. You're basically giving someone your hand so that they can hold that hand and then marry you.
After several unsuccessful attempts, Ilmarinen managed to create it. So Ilmarinen was trying to make the Sampo, and the Sampo was not something that was very easy to make. So it took him several attempts, several tries to make it. And each of these tries, these attempts, was not successful. But after a while, he managed to create it. He was able to create the Sampo. Delighted, Louhi immediately snatched it up and locked it away in a mountain. So Louhi was very happy to be able to have the Sampo in her hand. So she took it right away. To snatch up something means to grab it very quickly. And then she locked it away. She was afraid that somebody else might get their hands on it. So she locked it up in a mountain so that nobody could get to it.
Okay, so it seems like he has fulfilled his end of the bargain. Now it's time for him to win the girl's hand. But when it came time for Ilmarinen to wed Louhi's daughter, the girl refused, and so he had to return to Kalevala alone. That's not surprising to me. Of course, the mother offered her daughter to another man to get married, but the girl, probably thought, hey, Mom, this is my life. You can't just force me to marry something just because you want that Sampo. I want to do what I want to do in life. So, of course, she refused to marry the guy. Maybe he's a great guy. He's a legendary blacksmith, but, sometimes people don't get along. Maybe they don't have compatible astrological signs or blood types and stuff like that. So she probably just decided, he's not my type. I don't want to marry him.
And here we have the phrase, when it came time. When it came time for Ilmarinen to wed Louhi's daughter. Now, that's just another way of saying when the time came. But the reason why the phrase when it came time is used here is that it's referring to an event in the future that was not planned, or that was also something that you're trying to avoid. So, for instance, you could also say when it came time for Jerry to look for a job, he was not prepared to do it. He didn't want to do it.
So he stayed home and played video games for several months until his parents kicked him out of the house. But in any case here it says, when it came time for Ilmarinen to marry Louhi's daughter, she refused. She said, no, thank you, but no thanks. And so he had to return to Kalevala alone. He was deceived. He thought he was going to get this great prize of a beautiful woman as a wife, but it didn't work out that way. So he made that Sampo for that evil witch, and he got nothing out of the deal. I would have felt really cheated if I were him. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen now to our beloved Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分有一个句子写到 Not content with mere gold or silver as a reward, she wanted Wainamoinen to construct what she called the Sampo. 不满足于只有黄金啊或是白银作为回报，他要 Wainamoinen 打造他所称的这个三宝磨 Sampo。 好，那这个句子里面呢，它没有连接词，而且前半句它用 not content 来开头，我们没有看到主词诶，那这其实是使用到分词构句，它原本可以写作 She was not content ... and she wanted ... 那我们看到前后子句主词相同都是 she， 我们可以省略 and 还有其中一句的主词 she， 然后把那一句的动词改成分词，像课文它就省略连接词，还省略了前半句的 she， 然后把was 改成分词 being， 这个 being 可以再省略，所以句子才变成 not content ... she wanted ... 好，我们另外看到句子里面用到 what 是当复合关系代名词，可以用来引导名词子句，这时候 what 意思相当于 the thing that 或者是 the things that 来表达什么什么的事物。那么 what 引导的这个名词子句呢，可以当主词啊、受词或是主词补语，只是要特别注意哦，如果是拿这个名词子句来当主词，就必须视为单数，后面要搭配单数动词。好，在课文里面 what she called the sample 相当于 the thing that she called the sample， 它称为 sample 的东西。好，那这个名词子句呢，是用来当做动词 construct 的受词。我们也来造个例句， What she needs is some peace and quiet， 她需要的是片刻的安静。那我们这个例句里面名词子句 what she needs， 她所需要的东西是当主词，必须视为单数，所以后面才会搭配单数动词 is。 我们再看一个例句哦， This is what I've been looking for，这就是我一直在寻找的东西。那句子里面的名词子句 what I've been looking for 就是摆在 be 动词的后面来当主词补语，主词补语是用来补充说明主词，让它变成完整的句子。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Myth. Many cultures have a myth about how the world was created. Content.I'm content with what I have and don't need anything more. Mere. He was a mere child when he learned how to hunt and trap animals. Legendary. This song was written by the legendary folk singer Bob Dylan. Dome. The dark clouds moved slowly across the vast dome of night. Fetch. Samantha went to fetch her father for the man waiting at the door. Gorgeous.In all my life, I've never seen such a gorgeous dress before.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.